look at this. It's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hello, all you lovely people. It is almost October. I'm actually coming to you on the 27th evening of October. Tomorrow is the 28th. So I thought I should go ahead and film what I read in September and then what I'm going to read in October. So why don't we go ahead and get started with what I read in September. I had so many books that I read this month. I was actually really surprised at myself. So I did about 6 books again, which is just huge for me. I've never read this much. I don't think ever. Like 6 books in a month was never a thing for me before. So let's see what I have on Goodreads as far as what I have read. So one of the books was The Dark Interval by Rainer Maria Rilke. I got it from the library. It was quite good. I thought initially when I wanted to read this, it was going to be a book of poetry. It is not a book of poetry. It is a book of letters that Rainer Maria Rilke had written to other people talking about loss and grief and mourning and all of that when death occurs. So in my family the last few years we have had actually quite a number of deaths, which has been unfortunate. So I thought this might be an interesting read for me. And I think I took a lot of really good advice from it. Rilke kind of talks about embracing death instead of running away from it, realizing it is a part of our natural being as humans, perhaps a part of our metamorphosis into the next stage of things. He often refers to God as more of a natural being and not this old man in the sky, puppeteering everybody and that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that. I really think that this is a really interesting read for anyone that has suffered loss and is maybe going through the stages of grief, because there's some pretty good advice in here. So I think I gave this one 4 stars. Yes, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. So I recommend anybody read this. The next book I read was Atomic Habits, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. And that was by James Clair. I actually listened to this one. I talked about it a little bit in, I think, a video before my last one. And it has some really good advice about building habits, building a chain of habits, and just kind of better habits to make your life, a little bit easier. And keeping habits going, and then what to do when your habits, fall by the wayside or you break your habits. So I thought that was really good advice. I thought that maybe I had listened to it before, and I'm still kind of that opinion. I think at the time, because I've read it before, or maybe I've read something else that had this very similar advice in it, I gave it 3 stars out of 5. I mean, it's a solid book. Go read it if you want to develop really good habits. Another book that I read in the month of September was Wind/Pinball. And it's Hear the Wind Sing. And then this edition has Pinball 1973 on the back of it. Both of those by Haruki Murakami. So really it's 2 books in one. This is the copy that I just got. The copy I actually read was from the library. And I haven't gone through and annotated this one yet, but I have my notes, so I will be doing that pretty soon. And I totally love Haruki Murakami now. I am going to be reading more of his material very, very soon. In fact, I will be starting A Wild Sheep Chase in October, and we'll get to that one in just a second. So glad I picked it up, so glad that I'm reading it and looking forward to more of Haruki Murakami. This may not be the first couple of books that you should read by him. It might be better to start off with one of his, more widely known books. Norwegian Wood, I've heard, is just excellent. A Wild Sheep Chase and The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle are all really good places to start if you don't know where to start on Haruki Murakami. I actually took the advice of Emma, that's on her channel, Emmy, and she wanted to go in publication order. And so I decided, hey, why not let's do publication order and see how this author grows. So again, I am super duper excited to read more of Haruki Murakami. This book I read in September, These Hollow Vows, and that was by Lexi Ryan. I think I may have done a little bit of a review in the video before last as well on this one. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. I felt Lexi Ryan was trying to do more of a Sarah J. Maas kind of a thing with her books. This book involves the Fae and a human girl going into the Fae world and experiencing that, and her personal quest. And it's kind of, sort of different. It was pretty good. So that was pretty decent book. It didn't blow my socks off, so I just gave it 3 stars out of 5. I actually have the next book that's These Twisted Bonds, and I'm probably going to get started on that pretty soon too. I may actually skip it in October though. I'm not 100% sure yet. The next book I read was Twin Crowns. I was honestly not very impressed with Twin Crowns either. I also gave this one a 3 stars, and I feel like kind of I should have put it at a 2 stars, to be honest, so I may change that. And it was an okay fantasy book. It was about twin sisters. One is raised as a princess, the other one is not. They are, royalty. One of the sister that is not raised as a princess is actually raised by a group of rebels, I suppose, witches, and knows magic. The other princess doesn't know magic. She gets sent to replace her twin sister, and all kinds of things ensue. I know that there was a lot of tension in the story, and that was all right. I just don't think it was a very well handled story, and I don't think it was it wasn't very mature, but not as immature as the content was mature. But I just feel like the author herself, isn't at that place yet where she has really matured in her ability to write. So, and that was, I'm sorry, and there were 2 authors on that. It was Katherine Doyle and Katherine Weber. But, I honestly was not super impressed by it. And then for classics for this month, I read Great Expectations, back here. Don't kick around my pumpkins. Great Expectations, it was very good. It didn't take my breath away. Not the greatest novel I've ever written. Struggled with Dickens. I actually just did a video on Great Expectations, so if you want to see my full review, please go to that video. I think there's a reason why they have you read these books in high school, because some of them are so horribly boring, but they are examples of great literature for their time. So there's that caveat. If you want to read Charles Dickens, this may not be the place to start. I just don't know. But I do plan on reading more Charles Dickens in the coming year. I think for Christmas, I'm going to read A Christmas Carol. I've watched A Christmas Carol in so many different formats, and my favorite being A Muppet Christmas Carol. But I think that reading A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens at Christmas might be really nice. So we'll do that. Let me sit you there for right now. Then, let's see here. 100 Years of Solitude. I made it through 100 years of solitude. This felt like 100 years of solitude. I think that Gabriel Garcia Márquez is brilliant. I think that his writing is very good. I get behind it. It's beautiful prose, I guess. He constructs very beautiful sentences. I think his descriptions of nature and of the people, just the setting. his descriptions are masterful. They are wonderful. I didn't like the content of this book. Basically, the story is about a family and a town, and it's all kind of wrapped up together. The character is the family and the town, and the founding of this place called Macondo, which I think is mirror maybe in Spanish. And then it talks about how the city is founded, the family the patriarch of the family who founds the city and his family, and then the cycle of time that goes on, and time is a circle, and the sons have two, there are two, there's a patriarch and then there is his first son, I think, and then they end up sharing the first two sons. All of the boys end up sharing one of two names, and the women have different names, thank goodness, because then I would be so confused I wouldn't know up from down, basically. But they are all either titled Arcadio or Aureliano. And it can get so confusing because you don't know which one they're talking about sometimes. And Gabriel Garcia Márquez tries to distinguish between the Aurelianos and the Arcadios, but you still, I think maybe as an English reader, or an American English reader specifically, I get so confused. And so that part was just difficult on its own. But the sons end up repeating the same mistakes that their father had made before them. And so the cycle is constantly going on in here. And just there's things that magically happen in it. And so this is magical realism. There are things that magically occur in this village, in this family's life, and it's not treated like it's anything really. I mean, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, she went to heaven, but, it's not really, I mean, it's mentioned again in the book, but it's not like, oh my gosh, she went to heaven. They don't treat it like that. It's like, oh, okay, she went to heaven. Just one day, floated up with the sheets, and went to heaven. Or, things mysteriously, like a room mysteriously is clean, even though it hasn't been touched for 50 years, Little things like that kind of occur. And it's interesting. However, I don't like the content of the book. I think it was boring in some places. And I kind of didn't understand why some of it was even in the book. There was an entire part about an eating contest, and as I'm reading this and listening to it at the same time at parts, I'm like, why is this even in this book? Why do you have to talk about this? So he seems to talk about every little detail of of each of the members of the family, and that's all well and good. But he ends up skipping around a lot to the different family members. It's not just concentrated on one family member. Like, he'll talk about one of the family members for a long time, then he immediately skips over to another member of the family, and you have to get through that. But the only character I really liked in this whole book was Ursula. Maybe that says something about me. But because she put up with so much, witnessed so much, lived such a long life, and she dies at like 120 or some, silly long amount of time. But otherwise, I felt like the story was completely pointless and at parts. And the ending, I hated the ending. I'm sorry, I hated the ending. I thought the ending was not lazy. It's just, Like, why couldn't they have just gotten shot in the head or something, you know? That would have been slightly more satisfying to me, maybe, than how this actually ended. I don't know. I didn't like this. There's a lot of incest in this book, too. I mean, a heaping amount of incest. And this might just be me. I just don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think it's, you know, it's something that happens, yes, but you don't need to write about it in a book. I mean, for crying out loud. And, yeah. I mean, there were just parts of this I did not get. Some of it I did, and some of it I thought it was really nice, and some of it was just beautiful, but it was not the book for me. Yes, Gabriel Garcia Márquez is a genius. Is this book for me? This is not the book for me. I think that his Love in the Time of Cholera is actually a much better book. I'm probably going to try and read another of his novels just to get the taste of this one out of my mouth. So, I mean, that's just the brutal honesty of it. I didn't like it. Not for me. I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads because of just my distaste for this. And I'm not going to buy it. I'm probably never going to read it again. Maybe one day I will be like, oh yeah, I remember that crazy book, that 100 Years of Solitude. Maybe I'll read that again. I will say this as a positive for this book. It does stick with you. If you put this down after you've read it and it's still, it's swimming in your head for the next 2 or 3 days. This is how this book works. It affects you in a way either positive or negative, or maybe even neutral. There may be people out there that are just like meh to this book, but it sticks with you and it gives you something to think about. And good on him for that. He accomplished, I'm sure, whatever it was he was out to explore with 100 Years of Solitude. So that's my rant on that. I'll give it up now. Back to the library with that one. And I think that completes September. Oh, right. Smut Corner was supposed to be these hollow vows. However, it was not smutty enough for Smut Corner. So, what I decided to pick up instead, and I think I'll get it done in the next couple days anyway, so technically it's in September. We may bleed over into October, I'm not sure yet. But I went ahead and got A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair again. And this is back to the Hades and Persephone, and this is book 2 of this. I think it's 3 parts. And the first one was, A Touch of Darkness is the first one, then A Touch of Ruin, and then A Touch of Malice. So we're doing A Touch of Ruin right now. I should get that done in a couple of days. So we'll see from there. And I may just go ahead and finish up the trilogy. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do for October. Let's move on to October. I have a lot for October. And as you can see, I'm ready. I am ready for October. I have this wonderful, wonderful tea. It's a pumpkin spice tea. It's actually just a black tea, and I put a pumpkin spice creamer in here. Very good. It's like, I had a hard time finding a pumpkin spice creamer at the grocery store, actually. So I got this one. It's actually pea protein instead of milk. And I get a lot of plant milk anyway. I don't really ever drink milk because I have this lactose thing. And it's delicious. I'm so ready. I'm so ready for Halloween and pumpkins and all of that. I have my little pumpkins over here in the background. They're just the cutest little things, if it'll focus. Oh my gosh, yeah. I have one that's a little bit bigger than the rest. They're carved, and he's got a little jack-o'-lantern on one side, and he's just a pumpkin on the other side. So I've got him facing this direction for right now. And my candles, which these are kind of a nice rusty orange color, so I thought that they would work for this. So nice ambiance, nice glow. I hope it's not like super distracting for anybody, and I hope there's enough light to see me by. Be embarrassing if I like do all of this filming for content here and you guys can't see me. That would just be the worst. Let's get to October here and what I am going to read. So on my currently reading shelf on Goodreads, I have The Picture of Dorian Gray. The copy I personally own is within this collection. This is the portable Oscar Wilde. I got this when I was in college because I was interested in reading a little bit about Oscar Wilde. It's a poetry, I believe, because I did have like one English class where we could pick just about any poem, any author, and I was interested at the time in Oscar Wilde, so I picked this up. And I looked through it just to be sure, and it does have the picture of Dorian Gray in here, and so I am reading that. I have it marked where it is in here. It's actually not very long. I mean, it starts on, was it like page 130 something in here? Yeah, 130, and then it goes to about, page 391, so it's about 200 pages. Not very long at all, so I probably whipped through that pretty quickly. I started it yesterday. I like it so far. It's not too wordy. It's kind of very modern, and I'm not sure what year Oscar Wilde wrote this actually. So like 1880s. So it's fairly modern. We'll call it fairly modern. So anyway, I should read through this pretty quickly. I'm very excited for that because it is spooky season. The Picture of Dorian Gray is considered a horror, so I think that that counts as a spooky book for this spooky time of year. So on the topic of spooky books and classics, I decided also, and I showed this in my last video, this copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I am very much looking forward to reading Dracula. So I've never read it. I've watched the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula so many times. My favorite movie, possibly, my favorite vampire movie for all time, that's for sure. Now, it's probably not in my top 10 movies, but it is definitely up there. I loved it so much when I first saw it, and then I just have to watch it every October. It's so good. So I'm totally looking forward to this and seeing how it compares to that film. All right, also another classic, and this is because I really, really want to read this because I think it's going to be really interesting. It's A Room with a View, and this is by E.M. Forster. Emmy also read this recently, and she read it probably at a much better time than I'm going to be reading it now. But we just ended summer, so I'm thinking I can still kind of get the ambiance, the feeling, the mood, that's for this book. So A Room with a View is about an English woman, I think, and her maid, perhaps. They go to Italy. They kind of see Italian culture. They learn about Italy and how people are there and how it's not as stuffy as it is in England. And it's kind of a comparison. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading this too. Emma really liked it. And I tend to like a lot of the stuff that she likes too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think the only book I have differed as far as like Emmy goes is 100 Years of Solitude. She absolutely adores that book, and that's wonderful. It's just not for me. It's just not for me, and that's just totally fine. All right. I also am on my Murakami binge right now, so we're going to be reading A Wild Sheep Chase next, and I will probably pick this up and start reading it as soon as I am done with Oscar Wilde. Yeah, so probably as soon as I'm done with Oscar Wilde, I'm going to start on this guy and try to get it finished up. And then as I get closer to Halloween, we'll hit Bram Stoker up. And then I'm going to just toss in A Room with a View anywhere in between that. If I have like a week where I don't really have much, then I'll just whip that out real fast and read it. Then the last book that I have for this is a book. It's a fantasy book that I started last month and I had to return to the library. Unfortunately, I was listening to it on audiobook. It's called The Fifth Season. It's by N.K. Jemisin. And it's really good so far. Very different kind of magic system. This place seems to always have something really bad going on all the time. And it's what's going on while the world is ending. You know, what are people doing? And it seems so interesting to me. There are some magic users, there are some not magic users, there are beings that appear to be human but are not, and there's a lot of talk about tectonic plates and the earth moving and rocks and minerals and all kinds of interesting stuff. So the magic system's all kind of built around the ability to move the earth and cause earthquakes, at least so far. And I was only 25% in, which I'm still there. So I will pick that up as soon as I can and get that finished up. And that will be after A Touch of Ruin, because I'm also listening to A Touch of Ruin on audiobook. So, and that's it as far as the regular books. For Smut Corner, we're going to keep on with Scarlett St. Clair and listen to the next book after A Touch of Ruin, which is A Touch of Malice. These have been pretty spicy. The last book that I read by her, The King of Battle and Blood, that one was very good. And A Touch of Darkness was along the same lines as far as the amount of smut. So the spice level is very good. It's still male-female relations. So I'm probably, after we get done with this trilogy, I'm probably going to start looking out for other pairings. Gay, lesbian, that kind of thing, just because I'm always interested in reading that kind of material as well. If anyone has any good book recs for that, I seem to only be fed the heterosexual section of the romance genre. I'm constantly living in the heterosexual world over there. And I get kind of bored of it, actually. Give me something good to read. I beg of you, please. Otherwise, I'm just going to try and maybe get on Book Talk or BookTube. And maybe Book Riot, actually, and some other websites might have some good recommendations for I will call it alternative romance. Not to offend anyone, they call the heterosexuals the normies, I apologize for that, but I'm not the one that makes this crap up. So I'm going to be on the lookout for other forms of spicy glory out there, we'll say. All right. So I guess that is it then for the months of September and October. September flew by. Oh my gosh, it flew by so fast. I cannot believe how fast it went by. Fall. I know there's so many people saying this on YouTube right now, and it's almost cliche at this point. Fall is really my favorite time of year. I love it when it gets cooler outside. I love sweaters. I love falling leaves. I like the change in the color. Where we live in Missouri, we actually have some really nice foliage. And our drive home especially is just so colorful at this time of year. It's still hot. Like during the day, it is so hot. At night, it cools down a lot. Like right now, I think it's like 50 degrees outside almost. So that's definitely, jackets, like a light sweater kind of situation. Not cold, cold yet. But then once it warms up in the afternoons, like, you know, from 1 to 3 o'clock, it's the hottest point of the day, and it's like 80 or 90 degrees. It's just ridiculous. So you're layering, and then you're stripping off during the day. It's just awful. So I can't wait until we get to the point during the month of October here where it's like 70 degrees during the day, because then you can kind of just wear long sleeves and you're not uncomfortable. So, and right now it's just sweltering in this room. I don't know if the candles are also giving off heat, but I'm so hot right now. The tea is actually not hot, so it's fine. And it's still delicious. I drink tea hot or cold, so. But anyway, I thank you so very much for joining me. I hope that your September was wonderful. Mine sure was. And I hope that October is even better. And I cannot wait. I have so many things I'm so excited to read. And I can't wait. So I'm starting right away, especially like after I get off here. I got to go put my kid to bed. And then as soon as she's in bed, then I'm going to snuggle up with some more Oscar Wilde and keep plugging away at the picture of Dorian Gray, which I'm already impressed with, and I'm only like 20 pages in. So there you go. I know now that when I get even just a little bit into a book and I feel really good about it and we're jiving, that's how I know it's going to be one of my favorites. So he's such a handsome man too. I mean, look at this. He's such a pimp in his fur coat. He is such a pimp. Anyway, I guess that's it. Thank you so much. Enjoy your October. Bye-bye.